Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alex and welcome to the Massey Sport Fishing channel. Today I'm going to do a bit of a tutorial about sea run trout fishing. As a keen young fisherman, I've searched far and wide for the elusive sea run trout, caught by few and treasured by many. Today I'm going to be going over 3 topics about sea run trout. What's a sea run trout, where you can find them, and what lure choices you could use to catch them. Let's get into it. Right, first topic. What is a sea run trout? A sea run trout is a special type of trout. It is a freshwater brown trout that goes from the river it was born in out into the ocean. Why it does this is because of a lack of food. Typically, this can be the case of lower waters, less rainfall, making those rivers nice and, a lot smaller, or simply just a lower number due to other factors. The reason why they move out to sea is because there are a lot more smaller bait fish out in the ocean. There are some species that we have here in New Zealand that they would particularly go chase after. Some examples are yellow-eyed mullet, cockabillies, or estuary cockabillies. There are saltwater cockabillies, smelt, Stockel smelt, which is a North Canterbury variant of the smelt, and finally, the most commonly known, the whitebait. During the whitebait season, which is the 1st of September to about the 30th of October, there will be a big run of whitebait that go onto the estuaries. This is because of spring tides, and they go reproduce in the grasses. These sea run trout that move out to sea then move back in towards the rivers, but more towards the estuaries. And then they go chase after those whitebait, either dead or alive, they go and eat them. They typically try to eat them when they're dead after they've reproduced. The whitebait normally go up during the spring tide, where the grass is, they'll reproduce, then they'll pass away and drift back out towards the sea, in which a sea run trout will eat them. The only real main difference between a sea run trout and a brown trout is the fact that the sea run has gone out to sea, and also that a sea run trout doesn't particularly go after insects like how a brown trout would in a freshwater system, in which a sea run trout would more go after the actual bait fish itself instead of those little vertebrates that you find up in your larger rivers, even your little streams that you mainly find. So, let's put that into consideration. Let's go off the first off the bat. First location we're going to find them is around those larger long grass areas where those whitebait are. This is a typical spot for them to lie around and sit around because it's normally out of the current, nice and shallow, and then of course, that's where the food source is. That is where the whitebait are. So, if you find some tall weeds or some tall grass that is submerged in water, that's a good place to go. Normally, if it's nice and clear, you'll be able to see them cruising around the shallows, which is a pretty cool thing to see. Other areas you can find them is structure in the water. Now, what do I mean by structure? What I mean by structure are large trees and boulders that have come down the river and have been swept out towards the estuary. They use this both to ambush prey, like the whitebait and the smelt and the mullet, but also so they can protect themselves from their predators. These predators include shags, seals, and other large birds. They can very much affect the sea run in the way that they'll literally get eaten. So they can use that area to, first of all, get out of the current, protect themselves from the predators, but then also, as a shoal goes by, of whitebait, smelt, as I said before, any of those bait fish, they can come up out of their main little area, which we know as a territory, and attack those fish. Alright, and finally, one last location you might be able to find them is in the upper estuary, more towards your river kind of side, where there are deep pools. Now what I mean by deep pools are these pieces of the river, which once again, near towards the top of the estuary where there's a fair bit of current, you're going to find that there are some really deep parts of the river. So it will be nice, even depth, and then there'll be a big hole that'll sweep down. You'll notice this as the water begins to slow down, it boils, and also you can't see the bottom. These areas are really good because it's much slower water, so those sea run trout can have a break from the main current. You'll typically find pools just below a rapid, so make sure when you're going to find a pool, go up to the upper part of the estuary, head more towards the river, and then you'll start finding these pools. Another spot you can find pools is also on corners of the river or bends in the river. As that river sweeps around a corner, it pushes a whole bunch of sediment away and it begins to chew down and creates that nice deep hole that we're looking for those sea run trout. Alright, up next, what kind of lures could you use to catch these fish? Just quickly though, first of all, I'm just going to quickly go over what kind of rod and reel you can use for these trout. Preferably, you'd like to have a pretty decent reel and rod. This here is the Shimano Spheros 3000 on the Salty Advanced Rockfish. This rod here is a 7'6", 5 to 20 gram rod made for soft baits, metal lures, and also hard body lures. This is great also for a range of different species, but let's just stick to the sea run trout today. So preferably, get yourself something around a 3000 size. You could go down to a 2.5 or a 4000, but the 4000 is a little bit heavy, and the 2.5 is a little light if you hook onto something pretty big. But those three will be good for what you're doing. Alright, first of all, we're going to start off with soft baits, which are these things here. I've got quite a lot of them, to be honest. So, what kind of imitation are we doing? As I said at the start, there are a few different species. You've got your smelt, your whitebait, and also sometimes your small mullet. So, what those kind of imitations are going to look like are these kinds of things here. So, this is a whitebait imitation. Just here. So, it's a white pattern, and just a little paddle tail on the back, but this one here is good for what I call dead drifting. So, when a whitebait dies, it goes a very cloudy white color, and that is exactly what it looks like. A very white color, and it doesn't really move that much. The paddle tail is probably not going to help, but that's the kind of imitation you would like to use if you were dead drifting. If you're going for more of a live pattern, you would go for more this kind of thing here. A very clear, almost completely transparent lure. Whitebait are completely transparent, and the only thing you can see on them is their spine, which is a black dotted line along the middle, and their eyeballs. Sometimes you can see some little dots on their head, depending on the species, which I believe is a climbing species. But most of the time, it's just a clear color. The next thing that you can move on to is your smelt. So, what does a smelt pattern look like? Right here is your smelt type pattern. So, as you can see, it's a little bit different to the other two that I just showed. There is a green line across the top, you've got a little bit of red in the middle, and then kind of like a silvery kind of belly. That is probably the best imitation, personally from my recommendation, of a smelt. Some of them have a real nice green, dark green back, a little bit of red, and then that real nice silver belly. This one is also kind of good to doing a dead drift because it doesn't have that paddle tail, but also if you're using it as a live imitation, it's got plenty of wiggle, which is awesome. Right, Next soft bait. This one is probably going to work well as a mullet imitation, kind of like a black on the top and then a silver on the bottom. It isn't exactly a great imitation, as a mullet is very silvery. You're probably better off using a different type of lure, but it has a very good profile where it's nice and fat and has a really big paddle tail to have heaps of wiggle. Also, these ones in particular are really stretchy, which is great for durability. But that is going to work quite well on some of those larger sea run trout there. Right, next lure up is going to be our hard body lures. Right, so these are our hard body lures. People from over in Australia will know these quite well because they use them quite a lot for their species over there. I understand they use them for a range of different species, but we have ours over here mainly for our trout and sometimes for the salmon in our lakes. They are a great and traditional design of lure. Most ones I've got in here are Rapala, which is a very traditional lure here in New Zealand and in most of the world. 9 times out of 10, you go onto a tackle shop and ask for a Rapala lure, they'll bring out one of these ones here. Right, so I've picked out a few of the lures that I'll be talking about. So, when I say hard body, I normally mean a wooden or plastic design of lure. So they aren't stretchy like the soft baits, where they're a nice rubbery kind of design. I'm not talking about metal lures, because metal, clearly made of like a copper, for example, and then coated in a silver. But these here, they're all plastic or wood with an epoxy resin and a paint. First of all, starting off with a very traditional Tasmanian devil. These are commonly found here in... Ooh, dropped it. These are commonly found in New Zealand and Australia. This one is a great little design here, having a really nice kind of pattern there. Try and get that. Kind of like a brown trout, but that'll also imitate a few of your other small species. The great thing about having these large wings, that gives it lots of action in the water, and it shines in the sun, so it gives it a really nice kind of flash in the water. The next one is this small one here. Ooh. This is a Rapala. So, these are made out of a balsa wood or a different type of wood, covered in a paint and then in an epoxy. This one here is an absolutely fabulous paint job for sea run trout because it kind of imitates a small mullet, but can imitate a smelt as well. You've got that nice bluish, kind of dark, almost navy grey kind of colour, a bit of yellow, and then mainly white, which is a great, or even a bit of silver actually on the head, which is a great imitation for the mullet, but also a great imitation for smelt. This is a swim bait. This one is made by Shimano, but as you can see, it doesn't have a lip like how that Rapala did. You can actually see here, this one has a little bit of a lip there. This one doesn't. So, when you cast it out, that slowly sinks, and then when you reel it in, these 3 pieces here kind of move around and make it look really nice in the water. So, this one here is a great design because as you can see, it's nice and clear, it's got a bit of white, kind of like a browny colour. That's like a Stockel smelt to me. Whenever I've seen them in the water or ever caught when someone's been whitebaiting, they've accidentally caught it as a bycatch, that is an absolute winner right there for those colours. Next one up, like I was showing before, is the next Rapala. So this one is actually mainly a plastic design made by Rapala. So these are the X-Wraps. They've got a really nice colour to them. Nice green on the top, a little bit of pink to show like gills or even bleeding gills to make it look even more like an injured fish, which is more suitable for a prey to eat over a live one or a bit more healthier one. And you can see it's got that weird treble hook at the back. You can see there's feathers. Now, when these feathers are in the water, they kind of turn into like a fin shape or a tail shape. So when it moves through the water, it kind of has this nice little wiggle. With that lip, like I was talking about before, at the front, it kind of gives an action like that through the water. And it kind of makes it wiggle a whole bunch, which makes it look like it's swimming. As you can see, nice and silver on the bottom, green on the top. I would say that's a great imitation for a mullet. Alright, finally, this is new to my collection, as it is a new type of lure made by Shimano. This one right here, this is known as the Cardiff. So, this lure here, as you can see, is jointed, like that other one before that I showed you, also made by Shimano, but it has a little lip. So, when you cast this out, when it's slowly sinking, as this is a slow sink lure, it dives whilst you retrieve it, but also has some really nice action at the back. Another unique feature is that it can fold almost completely on itself, so it casts further. But, enough about the actual lure, but more about those colours. So, this one's more of a brown trout, so this is better suited to your freshwater systems for brown trout rather than sea run trout. But, in those upper areas, remember I was talking about pools, in those upper areas of the estuary, you actually find brown trout and sea run trout kind of coexisting with each other. You'll find some brown trout, especially little ones that are going to turn into sea runs, possibly, will be hanging around there. So that is actually a pretty good imitation for catching sea run trout. Alright, now finally we're going on to my personal favourite way of fishing for sea run trout, metal lures. So, metal lures, as I was saying before, with the hard bodies, is basically just a fully metal design. Most commonly in your metal spoon design. So, they don't particularly look as realistic as a soft bait or one of those hard body lures where it looks shaped as a fish, but gives lots of shine and lots of movement compared to those ones, which kind of, from a distance, look like a fish to a sea run trout, or to most species that'll go after a metal spoon lure. So, what are some of the lures that you can find around that will work well for sea run trout? So, first of all, I've got this one here. This is made by Daiwa, known as a Chinook, and this colour to me is preferably the best, or one of the best colours for sea run trout out there. So, I would recommend buying this one right here compared to the rest of them. It's just got that nice green line on the top. A few of those tiger stripes along there look great for a mullet imitation or even a smelt imitation, just because it's got that shine on both this side and on that side. From a distance, those fish will come over, hit that, because it's got heaps of shine. Next one, this is more of a custom lure, but you've got your lead body design. So basically, that's just been cast in a mold. There's no particular shape or anything to it. Kind of just glides straight through the water, but it's a little bit more realistic, as you can see, with that sort of greeny colour and a silver colour. Looks a little bit smelty, kind of like a mullet kind of design. As you can see, it's got a bit of wear and tear. But that's another great option as well. So if you can find any lures that look similar to that out there, give that a shot. Now, these are an old type of lure, but one of my personal favourites. My granddad used to use it, my dad used it, and now I use them. These are bent fish. So, simple little fish design. See, it's got a big curve in it, so there's lots of action, but they're quite small. And they come in a range of different colours. I love this colour. Once again, that sort of green, there's a bit of black and yellow. Nice bit of red with an orange eyeball. Gives it lots of like vibrancy and colour, which is great. Just throwing a little swivel on the front. There should be a hook on there, but there isn't. Got a few different here. So you've got a brown, black and white, and then just a black and white. But last season, when I went out for my one, this one was a bit of a go for me. Well, this was the one that I caught a fish on. So, just a bit of white on the bottom with a bit of black on the top. That works really well for the sea run trout. I believe the reason why that was is because it was nice and early in the morning. It wasn't exactly quite light yet, it was quite dark. So, that works quite well. Now, the reason why darker colours work well in darker conditions is because they're just looking for a silhouette shape in the dark. The eyes are very good in the water, of course. They're looking for clear bait fish, which is a very hard thing to see in the water. So, that's actually surprisingly good during those earlier parts and later parts of the evening and the morning. But if you're fishing during the day, you could use stuff like that kind of thing there. Much lighter of a colour, which is a lot better during sunlight or much brighter conditions. So there's a bit of a saying in fishing: darker days, darker colours, lighter days, lighter colours. Another type of design are these ones down here. Now these ones are made by Black Magic Tackle. These ones are sent to me, cheers out to them. These spinning lures. So they've got this little piece on the top that spins around, which makes lots of flash in the water, kind of makes a bit of vibration as well, which helps to encourage the fish to come in. And then it's got this tiny little body that's made out of what seems to be a bit of a lead design and painted over the top, which gives it a really nice colour. This one here, once again, those bright colours would work nicely on a bright day. This is probably going to be better suited to what kind of sea run trout would be chasing after, with that blue and the purple. Bit more of a smelty kind of colour compared to that real bright green and pink. I suppose that would look good for like a mullet kind of style, but I would prefer to grab this one here. Sweet, so that's all for this video. We've gone over what a sea run trout is, where you can find them, and also finally what kind of lures you could use to go catch those sea run trout out there. Hope you've learned something about it. I should have some more videos coming out soon of me actually going out fishing, but I'll leave you with some videos from another day. We actually went out kahawai fishing with some mates. Kahawai are pretty similar to the sea run trout, similar areas you can find them. They're just a little bit more aggressive, and they aren't fresh water, so they don't go into the fresh water. They just stay in the estuaries where you can find salt water. But I would highly recommend going out there and catching them on very similar lures, because they chase the exact same bait fish. We'll see you out in the water.